Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. Today, we are jumping right into the incredible larger-than-life story of Prophet Dawood, also widely known as David in the Judeo-Christian tradition. We're going to map out the fascinating trajectory of a man whose life was absolutely defined by extraordinary triumphs, divine miracles, and some truly profound tests of character.
Look, we all know the story of the boy with the sling, right? It's literally the ultimate underdog story, recognized all over the world. But what happened after the giant actually hit the ground? Well, today we are looking way beyond that famous battle. We're going to discover the intense life lessons, the massive trials, and the enduring wisdom that followed in the life of Prophet Dawood.
Let's kick things off with Phase 1, the unlikely giant slayer. To really understand Dawood, we have to set the scene. The Israelites had suffered some severe losses and were facing a pivotal moment. They were being led by King Jalut, or Saul, against a truly terrifying enemy, Jalut, who you might know better as Goliath. Now, before they even reached the battlefield, King Jalut issued a very strict warning. He told them Allah would test the army with a river. The instruction was clear as day. Whoever drank their fill was not with him, but whoever took just a single sip from the hollow of their hands, they were truly with him. But when they arrived at the water, most of the parched soldiers completely ignored the warning and drank freely. Because of that failure, Jalut's army was immediately whittled down. Only a handful of steadfast believers who truly trusted the divine plan were allowed to cross the river and go into battle.
And that brings us to the battlefield and to the terrifying arrogance of Jalut. I mean, this guy was a towering, formidable presence. He looks out at the paralyzed Israelite army and just roars. Are you out to play war with one of your playmates, or are you tired of your life? I'll sever your head with one swipe of my sword. He issues a challenge for one-on-one combat, and crickets. Nobody steps forward. King Jalut grew so desperate he even offered his daughter's hand in marriage and royal status to anyone who would fight. Finally, to everyone's absolute shock, a young boy from Bethlehem stepped up. The enemy laughed, and his own side just shook their heads in disbelief. That boy was Dawood.
King Jalut actually tried to dress the boy in heavy battle armor and hand him a sword, but Dawood rejected it. It restricted his movements. Instead, he chose the absolute simplest of tools, a wooden staff, a sling, and a few pebbles in a leather pouch. He basically told the king that the exact same creator who protected him from bears and lions while he guarded his father's sheep would safeguard him now. And with a single pebble, Dawood defeated the mighty giant, sending Jalut's terrified army fleeing. Literally overnight, Dawood became a revered hero.
Moving right along to Phase 2, the gifted prophet. Now, you would expect a young man who just achieved the impossible to totally bask in his newfound glory and royal status, right? Actually, no. Dawood sought solitude. He retreated into the desert to reflect on the events and to glorify Allah. It was a remarkable, quiet display of humility. It was during this time of humble devotion that Dawood was bestowed with prophethood and some truly awe-inspiring miracles that weren't given to anyone before or after him. First, he was given the Zabur, or the Psalms. He was also granted a voice so beautifully melodious that when he sang his hymns, the mountains, the trees, and the birds would literally flock together and echo his praises. On top of that, he was given the extraordinary ability to converse with animals. But one of the most fascinating gifts was actually a super practical one, the miracle of molding iron. His soldiers had been complaining that traditional iron armor was just too heavy and restricted their movement. One day, while he was fiddling with a piece of iron, his finger simply sank right through it. He could soften iron with his bare hands to craft perfectly fitting coats of mail. But beyond the practical military use, this is a really powerful metaphor for the softening of hearts, which is a theme we're going to see play out right now in the very next chapter of his life.
Which brings us to Phase 3, surviving the king's envy. So Dawood's courage, his piety, and his wisdom made him incredibly popular across the whole kingdom. In fact, the people began to admire him even more than King Jalut. And as you might guess, this sparked a deep, dangerous jealousy within his father-in-law.
The tension rose so fast. First, Jalut's envy completely boils over. Dawood's wife actually had to warn him that her father might try to cause him harm. Next came a trap. Jalut sent Dawood on a highly dangerous mission to battle the enemy Canaan, secretly hoping he just wouldn't return. But Dawood emerged victorious again. Realizing the intense, literal danger he was in, Dawood fled into the night and went into hiding in a cave. Furious, King Jalut began aggressively hunting his own son-in-law with an entire army.
The climax of this terrifying chase resulted in a torn garment instead of a severed neck.
Dawud actually discovered Talut's army resting in a valley, and he managed to approach the sleeping king completely undetected. Dawud could have easily ended the threat right then and there, but instead, he simply cut off a piece of Talut's garment. When he woke Talut, he held up the torn fabric as proof, saying, "I could have hacked your neck instead, but I did not. My mission is that of love, not malice." This profound act of mercy broke right through the king's jealousy, and Talut repented.
Phase 4. The Tested Judge. Years pass by. King Talut eventually dies in battle, and the people elect Dawud as their new king. Now, he faced the immense challenge of balancing absolute political power with his righteous duties as a prophet.
So how did he manage that heavy burden? Through what we might call the ultimate ancient productivity hack: strict time blocking. Dawud rigorously divided his day into 4 distinct parts: one part for earning a living and resting, one part for religious observations, one part for serving the people's needs, and one part for delivering sermons. And remarkably, despite being a literal king, he completely refused to rely on the kingdom's treasury for his personal income. He earned his own sustenance by selling the weapons he crafted with his own hands. Amazing, right?
Now, as a ruler and a judge, Dawud faced a highly significant test. It's really fascinating to see how different historical texts recorded. On the left side, the biblical account in 2 Samuel 12 presents a narrative involving deeply immoral acts: theft, adultery, and plotting murder. On the right side, the Quranic account in Surah Sad presents this exact pivotal moment not as a moral scandal, but as a profound test of objective arbitration, highlighting Dawud as a possessor of strength who repeatedly turned back to Allah. So let's dive into exactly what that specific test of arbitration was.
Okay, put yourself in Dawud's shoes for just a second. You're praying in your private chamber when 2 men suddenly scale your walls to present a grievance. Here's the dispute. One brother has 99 ewes, or female sheep. The other brother has only 1. And the brother with 99 is demanding the single ewe from the other. So, how would you rule?
I mean, it seems super obvious, doesn't it? Well, Dawud thought so too. He was deeply moved by sympathy for the perceived underdog, so he swiftly intervened. He declared that the man with 99 sheep was committing a great wrong. But here's the catch. He made this hasty ruling immediately, without even letting the wealthy brother speak or explain his side of the story.
So what happened next? The 2 men suddenly just vanished. Poof! In that moment, Dawud realized this wasn't a standard legal dispute at all. It was a divine test from Allah, and he had failed to be completely objective. He instantly fell into prostration, seeking forgiveness. The timeless lesson here is that you absolutely must let the dust settle, ignore emotional appearances, and gather all the evidence before passing judgment. Sure, the man with 1 sheep might have seemed meek, but perhaps he legitimately owed a massive debt to the other brother. Dawud learned that true justice requires absolute, unclouded objectivity.
And that brings us to Phase 5, a legacy of wisdom. Transitioning to the final phase of his life, we see how this entire lifetime of learning, humility, and commitment to justice became a lasting legacy. And that legacy was passed directly down to his beloved son Suleiman, widely known as Solomon. Dawud was incredibly proud of his son's intellect. The sources actually narrate a great anecdote where Dawud was listening to the issues of his people, and another dispute over sheep arose. Dawud issued a ruling, but his son Solomon, who was only 11 years old at the time, offered a brilliant alternative solution that was even more equitable. Rather than feeling threatened or undermined, Dawud celebrated his son, exclaiming, "This judgment is wise. Praise be to Allah for granting you wisdom. You are truly Solomon the Wise."
Let's move to the end of his extraordinary life. When Prophet Dawood passed away, he was deeply, deeply mourned. Thousands attended his funeral, including 4,000 priests, on a day of absolutely scorching heat. In a beautiful, fitting tribute, Suleiman utilized his own miraculous divine gift to converse with animals. He summoned massive flocks of birds to physically form a canopy high in the sky, shading the grieving crowd from the blazing sun until his father was laid to rest. Prophet Dawood was a man who literally had it all: unprecedented miracles, military victory, total political power, and a direct line to the divine. Yet his defining characteristic wasn't his power, it was his humility. He fasted on alternate days, he slept only part of the night so he could pray, and he repented the very moment he made an error in judgment. So, the question I want to leave you with is this. When we are given immense power, victory, or wealth in our own lives, do we boast and stand rigidly arrogant like the giant Jalut? Or do we stay humble and yield to the truth, just like the iron that softened in Dawood's very hands? Thank you so much for exploring the incredible life of Prophet Dawood with me today.